about personal leadership, we talked about teams leadership, and we talked today about organizational leadership. But before we get to it, I obviously, as you already know, and the habit dictates, I want to ask Timi how she's doing, what she's working on, why the color of her chair is actually red and not purple. And is it a gaming chair? And
It's a gaming show and I'm not a gamer. So sorry to disappoint you all, but because I work from home and I work in front of my laptop, I have my lot of client sessions and I spend a lot of time on my laptop creating content and all that stuff. I really needed to get a decent chair because I was getting a lot of backache as well. So I said, okay, that's it. I need to invest into something decent. And that's what I was thinking, that it's best to go with a gaming chair because those guys sit in those chairs for 8, 10, 15 plus hours. So the people who build the chairs, they probably know something, and it's better than a standard office chair. So I went with a really cool office chair as a gaming chair. So that's why it's red and it's a cool color. And I just like it because it sort of lights up my day. And when I have client sessions, some of them call it like the spaceship chair because they feel like when I work with them, I help them to skyrocket, which is a quite symbolic sort of gesture. But yeah, that's the reason why the chair is red. It's a little disappointing, but fun at the same time.
It looks very practical, and definitely I think in today's time people sit a lot, myself included, switching between office and home office. You definitely need some fancy chair to support your lumbar spine and your lower back. And I just actually got a new chair for my spouse, so it's definitely better. I'm sitting on a nice fluffy chair. You cannot see it, but it's totally white, totally fluffy. So yeah, I guess people would laugh as well.
We have to see it now, like at some point, like show us.
I have one probably more here.
There you go. Nice.
It's like from
a chair for winter. Yeah.
No, it's a comfy chair. It's a very comfy chair, but it doesn't go all the way up. So that's maybe now I got a little bit motivated by your beautiful throne.
Go for it.
Timi, what have you been up to in your business life, your planning,
a lot of things.
Visioning?
This is like the time where we are now. We are recording this at the beginning of November, so the sort of end of October, beginning of November. It embarks the favorite time of my year. I like the end of the year phase, and maybe for some people that means the last week in December. For me, this means like from now until the end of the year. So the whole of November and the whole of December is personally and professionally are my favorite months because I do a lot of reflecting. I do a lot of self-analysis, both on myself and also on my achievements professionally. So I've been doing a lot of that recently, and I've been trying to look at what were my goals for this year and then how am I doing. I've got a couple of months if something needs adjusting, and I think it's a great time frame for anyone to do something like that. And if you're watching this or listening to this in March, it's fine, but take a note now to do the exercise maybe at the end of the year. So if you are rewriting your goals, it's okay. And that's kind of what I've been doing, because at the beginning of the year when I set my business goals, I had a slightly different vision than what I'm playing with right now in my mind. So I've given you a bit of a sneak peek before we jumped onto this call, but I have a lot of creativity stuck in me and I'm looking for an outlet for that. And for the last few years, I have been very analytical, very rational, focusing a lot on business and scaling businesses and marketing. And marketing was the only area where I could use my creativity. But it's been bubbling up, and that was one of my little pivots within me that I want to explore, playing with my talent and exploring some new avenues and see where it takes me. So I want to focus a bit more on writing instead of just business. So stay tuned. Maybe you will see what will happen and what will unfold eventually. But I think it's really important when you are a leader or in a senior management position that whatever your goals for you set for yourself for the year, and something changes within you throughout the year, maybe something happened or you changed perspectives or your priorities changed, you don't have to so stubbornly stick to your initial goals. If you feel that you are a bit of a different person than who you were a few months ago, take a second look at your goals and those targets that you set yourself, and just double check, are they still aligned with who am I as a person? Is it still what I want? Because that's what happened to me. I realized that the goals I set for myself at the beginning of the year doesn't align with who I am today. So I needed to tweak things a little bit. And I think that's really crucial to do that, even if it is maybe, if you're in a leadership position and you have to follow the company KPIs or the OKRs, or if it is your own company and you're an entrepreneur, it doesn't matter where you sit. But if something doesn't feel right and not doesn't fit you, that's the best way of saying it, and try to make some little tweaks and changes to fine tune them. That's the phase I'm experimenting with and experiencing right now, which is quite exciting.
It's always very nice. Thank you for that addition. And also, what I always like, you bring this personal side of things, because when it comes down to business, and we're going to talk a little bit more about business and today's topic, maybe you can introduce as well just in a second. But I like how you think about, business, and how you think about your personal life, and that you're always feeling what makes you happy and what makes you unhappy. And I lead this little group called Business Future Mastermind, where we talk a lot about business. And I was sharing actually a semi-business topic, which was, happiness, and what does happiness mean for you in business. And then you really see how quickly we really can jump into the KPIs, the analytics, into all the analytical type of things, and then wonder why people are unhappy when you don't ask them how they are, and you measure everything only via the metrics. So I like how you combine things and how you keep always the perspective and self-checking. Hey, where am I? Is it still actually fulfilling, or is it actually backfiring? Does it make me... I've seen it with myself so many times, because I'm very good at loading my agenda from here to there. And then if I don't go, I'm like, oh yeah, like we just talked about it, I want to do MBA, and I actually wanted to finish it this year. And I just went maybe through this from the entire course. And I'm like, no, for some reason, it's not on my focus. And I was more focusing on marketing, building myself more as a leader. And then you got to stay realistic, but yet being ambitious. I think this is always the balance that we need to think, and have fun. This is obviously the big topic, which I've seen with myself as well, because I can really quickly become analytical and just driven by the metrics and by checking things off the agenda. And then in the end, it doesn't make me, and I wonder why I'm unhappy.
Exactly. I have a client who's a business psychologist and an executive coach, and he's super experienced. He's in his, I want to say, early 60s. Hopefully I'm not offending him, something around that age, but he's got incredible amount of experience behind him. And this one sentence that he says to his clients when he pitches to a new company, he asks them, how do you measure happiness within your team? And I really love that concept, because what you are saying is so true, that people just look at, the KPIs, the targets, the conversion rates, the this, the that, only just the figures and the numbers. But what do you have in place to measure with numbers the happiness of your team, the happiness of your management team, the happiness of your own role or your own position? We don't have that. And that's something I think would be so beneficial to many organizations, to have some kind of a matrix in place, like a scoring matrix that would give you a clear understanding of how fulfilled your team is, how happy, how motivated your team is, instead of trying to just guess it, or trying to see behind the fake smiles when you ask them how you're doing, and they're like, yeah, I'm great, thanks, but actually they are hating their job. So it's important, and that really ties very closely to today's topic that I'm super excited about. So the reason why we're having this chat today, and why I'm also here having this conversation with you, is that we had this conversation a little while ago talking about how important it is to have integrity as a leader, and that really caught my attention and it got me really excited. So that's something that we wanted to explore a little bit more in depth. What does it mean to have integrity? If you're an organizational leader, if you are leading a department, a division, or a team as well, how can you have integrity at work? And what does that even mean? And I think that needs to be the starting point. What does it even mean to have integrity at work, or to be that kind of character who works with integrity? So I'm going to kick this off asking you a question. Okay, in your dictionary, in your own mind, what does that mean to you when someone brings integrity into their role at work?
It's a very, very good Very good question, and not easy to answer because many organizations operate differently. And when I have to answer this question, I often go really quickly to myself and how I think about being integrous with myself. So that means, having traits, whether that's, values that I often talk about in integrity, honesty, passion, enthusiasm, high performance, perhaps even things that go beyond that, like commitment, being curious. So I feel integrity is this overarching concept where it pretty much means being true to what you say, true to your word. And especially when it comes down to organizations, I think this is a difficult topic, especially in today's turbulent times. And we see what's happening in the world. Things would be probably not happening if people are more in touch with themselves and more honest about, do I really live according to those values? So you could have integrity as a top of the pyramid and build the entire organization to say, okay, what does integrity really mean for us? Is it that we are true to one another, we are authentic with one another, we are not afraid to share our opinion about how we feel? If I have received a feedback from you or from a senior manager, and I had this actually in the past, unfortunately, multiple times, where people, twice my age, and again, this is without judgment because I've made many mistakes myself, but I was actually quite vocal and I said, I'm sorry, but I don't think this was really appropriate feedback. And and then in the end, a particular person said, yeah, sorry, I'm not so experienced in this. And for that, again, without judgment, but sometimes I'm a bit shocked by how people actually take this for granted. We focus so much on the hard skills, like we just talked about, the whole analytical type of things and approach and analytics and making sure KPIs, OKRs, everything is set. But then these so-called soft skills actually are, I feel, as we progress, and probably always have been, the hard skills. How you treat one another, how you treat others, but it often starts how you treat yourself. And that means when you are true to yourself, then often you see that resonating in the organization. So long story short, I feel very honored when I talk to you, when I talk to people that I admire and who are similar and straightforward with how they are. They change, we all change, we go through different stages, right? Sometimes we are unhappy, sometimes we are down, sometimes we are up, but often you see that people are very true to how they behave, and throughout the years you know them. That's why we develop friendships, because somebody is there, been there, done that, and in a similar fashion you can rely on them. And I feel this is something that many people need to brush up, go back to the drawing board, as I call it, and say, hey, what are my values? Am I actually integrous to my friends? Am I actually picking up the phone when I say I will call them? Am I gonna fight for my team, for my organization to get those promotions in when I promise that, or despite the setbacks? So this is kind of a long story.
Yes, no, it's a good way to paint the picture, because that's exactly, I think, the biggest issue is when it comes to those kind of leaders who really want to make a positive difference within their organizations, but they're not quite sure even what the term means, like leading with integrity, because it is such a complex concept that it has many different readings. So the starting point has to be agreeing with your own team, with your own department, with your own organization. What is the definition of integrity for you specifically? What do you agree on for you as a team, as the organization, as the division, as a department? What does even the concept or the word integrity mean? Because if for you as a leader it means something that you're going to honor your words, like for example what you mentioned with the promotions, that's one thing. But if someone in your team has an idea about, for them, integrity, it means that you are being empathetic, completely misunderstanding each other, right? Because you're going to have different expectations. But in my reading, I'm going to give you a couple of negative examples to show you what integrity isn't, because I think that's going to be easier to recognize when someone isn't leading with integrity. And I had a couple of those experiences throughout my career. So I was working at this bank. It's always the bank that I can't go back to for the negative experiences. I'm super grateful for it, but clearly it was not the right environment for me. But I was working at the the bank, it was it's like a call center within a major bank in the UK, and I was up for a promotion for a team leader position. It was a small team at a time, and I was quite new in the role, but I was super ambitious. I had the skills. The team already looked up to me. I was already the deputy team leader, so it was kind of the natural move for me as well. And before my team leader actually came to speak to me and tell me one-on-one that I'm getting the promotion, I had another person within the team. Let's call him the snake. He was seen a second why. The other person on my team actually took me aside, and he was super sweet, really nice, very supportive, wanted to have a quick one-on-one with me just to ask how I'm doing, how I'm feeling, how do I like the role. We were on the same level, mind you, okay? And he was really sort of like fishing for information. I could feel that, like, he's too nice, like, that something doesn't feel right. It's like he was sugarcoating a lot of things. He was being overly nice, over kind. And I said this one sentence to him to say that I really like what I'm doing here, but I'm also interested in a different department, and those are my long-term goals within the bank, to take a side step to learn forecasting and analysis. So what happened in the end, he took this information, went to my team leader because he knew I was up for a promotion, told this information to my team leader behind my back that you shouldn't promote Timi because she's only going to stick around for a year or two and then she will switch departments. And it created an entirely unnecessary drama. It created such a bad atmosphere because obviously a small team, people talk. I heard the whole story back again, and I was very grateful for my manager. She was this very firm, very tough, but fair manager. She's an American lady. I loved working with her. And she sat me down and told me the full story from beginning till the end. And when I found out what happened, I told my manager at the time to bring in this guy right now. And the three of us, let's have an open and honest conversation so we can definitely avoid any misunderstandings, any of the he said, she said stuff. And guess what happened? This guy straight up lied into both of our faces. And that is the great example of what it means when someone doesn't have integrity. When you do anything to backstep another person just so that you can get that promotion over them, you will be surprised. I still got the promotion. The guy didn't. He actually was removed from our team. But it was because of my manager's integrity. My manager had integrity. So that's kind of what I wanted to show you with this story, because you can see the negative example of what it means when someone is having that ambitious drive. In this story, the snake, the guy, okay? So he wanted the same promotion, the same position that I was up for. But instead of him speaking up honestly and directly, and we could have had a conversation about it openly, we could have come to an arrangement that both of us can become deputy team leaders or anything. We could have worked it out. In the end, it resulted in him being removed from the team because he was not respecting the team. He was backstabbing the team members, and that clearly shows that's not leader characteristic, right? If you are going to do this backstabbing kind of communication, that's not integrity. And it has an impact not just on you as a leader or potential leader, but on the rest of your colleagues, on the rest of your peers as well. You lose respect immediately. And that's a difficult position to build yourself back up from if you lost that trust already. And the same applies for if you are changing departments. When you are new in a department as a leader, as a manager, you have to start from zero again. They don't know you yet. You're building that trust. You're showing people that you are leading with integrity. So in my reading, integrity means that you are speaking the truth. You're not lying. You're not playing that two-faced game that you're brushing up on numbers just to make your department look good. I've seen that happen as well. Playing with the reports, reporting on the positives, and they were teaching this stuff to us as well. How to pick the positives out of the reports and focus on that. So that's not integrity for me. Anything that isn't showing the reality of a situation, doesn't matter what the topic is, that's not real. And how can you be staying true to your own values if you are dealing with a false or a fake scenario? You lost that opportunity for being authentic or leading with integrity. This is also a long story, but I really wanted to share this because it shows all these different perspectives, and maybe there's a few takeaways there for you guys watching this, that if you're ever in that similar kind of position, that maybe you're up for a promotion or maybe someone else gets a promotion over you, that happened to me as well. Sadly, I was really upset. I left the company, but speak to those people. If going back to the other story, when I lost out on the promotion, when it was very clearly up for me, but they brought in an external person, which was the worst decision. It impacted the entire team. Instead of me sitting down with my current manager and having an open, honest conversation and coming up with a plan B for a new development plan, I got offended. I was young. I was 20 something. I got, like the ego got the better of me. And I was just like, F you all that I'm leaving. And I gave them my notice and I left. Bad move on my end. But that happened. So if you are in that position, either yourself as a leader or you have someone on your team and it's an uncomfortable and a tricky situation, have open and honest conversations. So explain the reason behind your decision. If you have to promote someone over another person, sit down with that person who lost out on that promotion. This is where you can really show that you are leading with integrity, because that attitude will trickle down into the rest of your organization. Okay, we're not talking about just team management here anymore. You are leading the entire organization, and these little extra elements that are not the obvious ones, that are not the KPIs, not the the targets, but these little things actually do a lot more for the organization in the long term versus you missing out on your quarterly target.
Yeah, that's very, very interesting. I have to say that you painted a picture quite well, because I think we all can recognize a lot of these different scenarios, from somebody being kind of sleazy and trying to backstab you. I mean, pretty much what I'm taking out of this is credibility and trust. That's kind of a big topic in terms of integrity. If you want to really for people to trust you, I mean, has to do a lot with credibility. And obviously this guy that you just painted as a, maybe not a daredevil, but pretty much as a devil. And
let's not go that far. I just called him a snake. If you want to call him the devil, okay, that's fine. No, it's fine.
In general, I think we've all been there, and some of us, when you feel like you could easily bring that to the boss and try to play against each other. But there is a great book, and I think it's called On Homecoming and Belonging by Mr. Junger, I think, and that's a war hero, I think, who was in Iraq, and he talks about that notion of how we want to belong as human beings to the tribe. And funny enough, how you describe this also in your own experience, trying to get promotion and then leaving. He talks a lot about these different things, like back then, how we were just hunter gatherers, and we had to, somebody, when they tried to steal, they obviously were expelled from the tribe, because you share everything. In today's society, it's a little more complex and a little bit more sophisticated, where you're part of these organizations, and these are little signals. And if you really have a target as a company that you want to build a tribe within and outside, then obviously you will treat each other differently and your customers differently than if you have this whole bickering at one another. And it's hard, probably, if we talk about managing organization. You have somebody on the top, which is obviously, you've seen it, I've seen it, a big challenge, where they are not involved enough. And it doesn't mean that they have to micromanage, but involve, meaning leading by example and showing, hey guys, we are pulling as one team. We want to do this together, especially when it comes down to the hard time, when, like, we now are in the tech, where tech layoffs and people silently quitting. And it's a lot related to this, because people don't talk about it enough, because
exactly.
It's interesting. I have a question for you, because there is obviously a lot to unpack in just what you said. But what do you think about perhaps consistency and even ethics, like in terms of organizational leadership? Do you see it as important as well, these characteristics for a leader? And we talk about organization that's obviously composed from you, me, and maybe 10,000 other people, and departments and heads, and VPs and CEOs and all the C-level. But how do you think these two, ethics and consistency, play a role?
I think incredibly important. They have the really crucial sort of places within that whole game of leadership in general. Because just think about an organization. Okay, it's a living, breathing thing. It's like there's no coincidence why you call a company an organization. It has all these different functions. It has all these different organs, okay, within it. So we could call the sales team the heart. You could call the, I don't know, the brain would be the marketing team, etc., if you want to draw that similarity. But there are going to be decisions when you have to, or tough times when you have to make sort of very uncomfortable decisions. Maybe there are layoffs that you need to do. You need to maybe combine two different departments to restructure the whole organization. And if you can't do that in an ethical way, it's very possible that a lot of people will feel betrayed, because you cannot make everyone happy, okay, especially when there are downsizing, or where, you know, maybe you're not hitting the targets, the economy is bad, or maybe something bad happened, okay, it could be anything basically, and you need to have some layoffs. You need to shrink some of the departments or combine few of the departments, which means that the new managers will have to come into play, or some will have to be let go of. So those are difficult and tough decisions, but you can still do them in an ethical way, meaning, going back to the previous part of the conversation, having those open conversations, and don't keep people just in the dark. And that's, I think, one of the biggest outdated, worst approaches that these people usually would do, especially quite high up within an organization, to keeping the details very last minute, or sharing the details very last minute with the rest of the team, and only sharing some details for people at the very high, high level, and then they just drop feed some information until it's too late. And people find out, people talk in companies, even if it's not a physical office, you have chat, you have Zoom, you have everything. People are going to be having conversations, the gossip will start. So if you want to avoid all of that happening, especially when there's a restructure happening, or you're closing down an entire department, I've been on that end as well, when I was sitting on the edge of my seat, not knowing, are they going to close our department or someone else's? And they didn't tell us until the last minute. And the way we found out, this is also the bank, a lot of examples from the bank. The way we found out, it was through a newsletter that they sent an email to us on the day it already happened. So one day they just went to the entire department. They told them, hey guys, we're closing down. You're going to be, made redundant in a month. And that's how we all found out. Not me, but that's how I was like, is it going to be us, or is it going to be the department next to us? So that was a really bad decision to do. It would have been a lot easier to communicate that very openly, to say, this is the reason why we are doing it. You don't have to go into the nitty-gritty with the numbers, the economy, etc., but be honest about it, be ethical about it, because you are impacting lives and the families of those people as well. And I know that you can't save the whole world and you can't save everyone, obviously. If those tough decisions have to be made, it's fine. But if your communication is going to be consistent, so this is where consistency comes into play, and you're not just blurting something big out at the last minute, so you're creating a bit of a shock for those people involved, it's going to be a lot easier for those people to digest. They're going to walk away with a lot better experience, even if it is a bad situation that they have to deal with.